Alright, in this video I think I'm actually going to try and make the spoon out of the wood that came in this beginner's wood tool set from BeaverCraft. If you didn't watch the other videos, I did an unboxing video and just the first impressions and a couple quick thoughts, but in this video, which will probably be a little longer, I'm going to try and actually use this set to make a spoon out of the wood that came in the set. So here we go. I'm looking at it. It's pretty straight. If I look at the end, I can see the grain is almost perpendicular to both possible faces of the spoon, so it's not really going to matter which side I pick as the front. I'm going to pick this as the side that I put the bowl in because I already made a nick just testing out the hook knife on this side, and I might try to do a slight crank. And if you're wondering what that is, maybe you're watching this video because you just got this set. I'll show you what I'm thinking. Most spoons have kind of a bend in the way they're laid out, and what I mean by that is spoons are usually not flat. Spoons, if I get out this paper, spoons usually are bent a little bit like that, so that when you're scooping things out or eating, there's a little bit of a crank. A crank would be like this section right here, versus like a spoon that is just completely flat, right? It would be hard to even just draw that. So anyway, we're gonna try and pull a crank by thinking about how maybe we'll go down this way, so we'll leave this as the lowest point, then we'll focus on trimming some away as we get farther up, and we will work to make that possible by also trimming away some of the top part here, something like that. We're not going to think too hard because they didn't give us much to work with here, but we're going to do what we can do. Alright, so here we go. I think the best place to start would be with trying to get rid of the bigger chunks with the bigger knife. When we get closer, we'll use the smaller knife for fine details, and lastly, I think the bowl will be the last part we focus on here. So let's see. So we're going to try and remove this material from the back side here. This is basswood, so that's what I'm pretty sure it is. Or I think they might call it lime in other parts of the world. Okay. Well, I'm holding the knife straight out in front of me and just pulling the wood backwards. So I have my joints locked, that way the knife doesn't go flying off in different directions. As we can see, alright, there's already a little bit of a bend. I haven't removed much material from here. Now the question will be is, can we come against the grain this way, or do we want to start by going down here? So usually I'm working with green wood, so I'm following the grain in a much more readable way. Tell you what, let's do the whole back side first, then we'll do the front profile. That means next I want to take out some of this portion. So I'm going to use a thumb lever cut like this, because then I will know exactly where the blade is going to be. It's not going to go flying off in different directions and hit things or people or me. And I'm also rounding up the sides here. Same thing over here. Just leaving a nice crisp finish. It's always nice when tools come sharp enough to use. You know, compared to some other cheap knives you could get, these have an edge on them and are good for this dry wood. Once again, I wouldn't know how they'd hold up against maybe a hardwood or a wet wood. So now what I'm doing is I'm working on rounding the back side here. Round the back side just like a spoon, and I'm leaving a lot of the wood still especially the closer I get to the crank here. The closer I get here, the less I'm removing. Wood's chipping up a little bit. So far, so good. Alright, so you can see that there's a little bit of, got more wood taken out from back here, more wood taken out here. So now the next section is, I'm almost going to do the reverse, try and take out the wood from there. First, we'll do a little bit of this though. Take it nice and slow. Once again, using thumb lever cut. And this might be a good time to take out the next knife, right? A little smaller, a little less blade. Honestly, this spoon is small enough you could use this knife the whole time, but I want to try using all the knives, so that's why I'm using both of them. Right. All right. Something that's nice about a nice skinny blade like this is you can make nice tight turns too. Okay. Well, I think that's good for that. Put this back. So now we want to try and carve out this middle section here. What is the best method of approach for this one? Let's see. Can I do the potato peeler grab off the edge? I guess I can kind of make that work. I don't know. That's not going to work. I think I have to come down the grain the other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this against my chest like this and pull towards me. If I could change the camera angle, I would, but I'm pulling towards me, making these cuts, and I'm keeping my elbows at my side so that the knife doesn't come flying at me. Now I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. Sorry that I can't move the camera, it's kind of locked in place right now. Alright, so now I've come down from both sides. I first went this way, then I went this way. So now I'm going to work on removing this material, which is a decent chunk of it. It's ready to just be peeled off. I would say one tricky part about using a piece of wood like this is it easy to whittle? Like, yeah, that's why people carve basswood all the time, but a little bit more difficult to follow the grain, because let's say for green woodworking, a lot of the time you're focusing on where the grain is going, trying to be very cognizant of it, follow it. So you can see there's a little bit of a bend to our spoon, not much, but you can see there's a little bit of a bend. Try to make it a little bit more pronounced, remove a little bit. This is the part, if this is your first time making a spoon, this is the part where you really want to keep an eye on the curves of your spoon. You should always have like a nice flow, so it should be widest at the end and gradually getting skinnier, but not too skinny, and don't try to put any final cuts on until it's the actual end. So the cuts you make right now, they don't need to necessarily be perfect. They don't need to leave a good surface. Let's see if we can get rid of, move this camera a little bit. So I'm going to put this against my chest here. I guess I could have done this, you know, very gently. These are very slow, controlled cuts. This probably is not a very beginner way of making this. So if you're a beginner and you're gonna try doing that towards the chest cut, my recommendation is elbows locked at your sides, because you want to know that if it comes out of the wood, it won't go any farther. All right, so we got kind of a bend going on here. Okay. If this is your first time, there are some good videos on common sense safety out there. I'd recommend looking for some. I think I have a playlist on my YouTube channel. Not videos I made. I don't necessarily know if I'm the most qualified person to talk safety, so go check that out. So anyway, here we go. A little bit of see if I try to make the handle straight, how it's now flicking up. That's good. I'm going to make some facets, so going down the corner, so it's not like a rectangular handle. So we're going to do one like this, a couple like this. You can see how they're peeling off the sides. Come from around here. Come from over here. Alright, I think we're almost at the part where we're going to do some work with the hook knife, the most exciting part, especially if you are new to this. If you just bought this and you're watching this as an example, or you're watching this for any type of tips or learning, the hook knife is definitely probably the most exciting part, because it is the least like a normal knife. Alright, and then we put a nice finish down the sides. So I kind of did that, so now I'm going to just do these little pivoting cuts like this, where I'm not really trying to remove a whole ton, I'm just like doing little turns until it just flicks that off, because otherwise making a good connection right here at the shoulders can be tricky. So anyway, alright, getting caught up in the little pieces, and we don't want to focus on the final cuts until the end. So there it is, the spoon blank with a crank put in it, which is optional. You don't need to do that. If the crank seems like a lot for your first go, don't. There's, like I said, there's some cuts in there that are not necessarily beginner friendly. Now we're going to try using the hook knife. The thing about the hook knife is, this is your first time, I'm going to use this like potato peeler grip, and kind of come across, but I'm always going to make sure that when I'm coming across, I don't put my thumb in front of it, so you could see, if I was trying to dig in, it would get caught in my thumb. Instead, I'm going to keep my thumb below it somehow, right? So I might prop the bottom, so that way if it goes through, it goes right over my thumb, nothing sticking up in front of it. Okay, so here we go. Let's go to a goal here. I would say the profile of this hook knife, in all respects, both the curve, the bevel, not really comparable to a Mora knife one. I think if you want a hook knife, you don't need anything more than a Mora 164. They have the 162. If you watch my other videos with my opinions on that, you'll note I also like the Mora 162, but I think the 164 is the most that anybody could ever really need for carving spoons. There's all these other fancy expensive ones that I'm sure are very nice and, you know, definitely worth their money. That people who make them put a lot of skill into those expensive hook knives, but I just don't think the average person needs them, unless you've got the cash to drop and really want it. Someday maybe I'll get one, but I definitely think that the 164 is good enough for me right now. Alright, so you can see it's a little chattery. That's those like ridges and lines that are happening, and that's because of just the profile of the hook knife. So I'm going to try and rotate it a little bit more where it's skinnier so that the back won't drag as much. And I'm going to take it slow. I've also been going kind of aggressive. This is a smaller spoon, and this hook knife definitely kind of tricky to use in this smaller spoon. I'm going to stick with smaller pieces here. Kind of a tricky grip. I'm gripping a spoon like this and I'm going over it. Definitely a trickier grip, but for a spoon this size, I think that's the option. Luckily, the wood is not hard, so I don't need to use a ton of muscle, which means if something did go wrong, I would not be using a ton of muscle. If you're using a dull tool, I'll say this: if you're using a dull tool and you find yourself really having to force the knife through the wood, that is when you get seriously in danger of hurting yourself. Because if you're finding yourself having to use a lot of muscle, then when something does go wrong, it goes very wrong. If you only use a little bit of muscle and you use sharp tools, if something goes wrong, will it hurt? Sure, your tools are sharp, but a lot better than having a lot of muscle behind your tools, because a lot of muscle will do a lot of damage. So I'm just not going to use a lot of muscle, because I'm not going to try and force anything to happen here. This is not a tool I usually use. I usually use a Mora hook knife. So I don't want to get caught up in trying to use this in a way that I just don't usually use it. I'm trying to do a thing that I usually do with another thing. Each style knife I find has its own personality. One thing, if you're watching this video ahead of time on kind of how to, I'd probably recommend drawing the outline of the bowl so that you also know where the lip of the bowl is going to happen. That's one thing I didn't do, just because I'm used to keeping like the 1 millimeter, half a millimeter gap between the edge of the wood and the bowl. So I don't need to draw that, but if this is your first time, it might be worth it. It's good to take off less first and then more, because you can't put the wood back on the spoon. You can take more off, you can't put more on. Alright. That was not a moron joke. Okay, here we go. So far, looking like a spoon. It's got a crank. The bowl, the bowl might be what it's going to be. I don't think I'm going to take forever. I'm going to use some of these diagonal cuts, which I think will smooth it out a little bit more. So do some sweeping diagonals. Try to follow curve of the wood. A little bit better than just forcing it across. Alright. you know, if you're using dry wood like this, you're already not doing green woodworking, so you might be using sandpaper. That's fine. I would say if you're just trying to make it look nice, use sandpaper. A lot of people get angry. I do not use sandpaper. That's why I don't have it. That's why I'm not going to use it, but you can check out my Instagram if you're curious about what my final products look like without sandpaper. Instagram is the same as my YouTube name. Okay, so there we go. I think the bowl, let's see, I think the bowl's looking as just about as good as it's going to get. I could spend, you know, you can spend forever trying to get it perfect. I am not going to make this video last forever for your sake and for mine. It's already over 20 minutes long, so if you stayed this long, great. You know, you did it. I don't know how, but good on you. Just gonna make some final kind of like tweaks, blend that in together, maybe go around the bowl, just take off a little bit there. This is to round off the edge, right? Because if you are going to use this to eat, and you don't want the edge to be super square and sharp. Probably took off a little bit more on the front than that too, but that's okay. So we do not want it to be square and sharp. We want it to be kind of have like a little chamfers thing here, right? The edge of the spoon is going to be pulled out of your mouth. You don't want that to make your mouth and make it go south. Okay. Then lastly up here, let's put a little bit of finishing touches on. There with a few cuts, and I like to leave them uneven, but I feel like this is not an uneven situation. Alright, cool. That's still going to be uneven, but that's the way I roll. I like it that way. Sorry, everybody. It'd be like that sometimes, alright? Well, anyway, there you have it. Spoon. A little bit of a crank. I'll tell you what, we'll even do this. Check this out. Just to really show the crank. This is the flat edge of the box. And you can see that's where the profile used to be. The spoon. And that's it. The BeaverCraft beginners woodworking spoon carving thing. If this is your first time, it probably won't take you as quick as it did take me in this video, and if you're like me, once you're done, you're going to go over it a bunch more times and make a bunch of little cuts like this. But I'm going to stop for now. I'm going to say that's that. Hope this helped. If you have any questions, post them below. If this was helpful, like the video. Subscribe to my channel. I like doing tool reviews, helpful things. All I know is when I wanted to learn, I would watch video after video after video. And I hope that this was a video that maybe might help you on your learning journey. Alright? So thanks for watching.